Have you ever imagined hearing from a doctor that your life as you know it could end in just a few months? Have you thought about how you would react if the diagnosis said there's no cure, that time is short, and that everything you love could simply disappear? And what if I told you there's a real story of someone who, when faced with such a sentence, chose not to accept the end as destiny, but instead to create a completely different future using only the power of the mind, affirmations, and gratitude? A story that made doctors scratch their heads, asking, how is this possible? This is the journey of Michael Turner, an ordinary 34-year-old man, born and raised in Portland, Oregon. He wasn't a millionaire, didn't have access to secret experimental treatments, nor did he possess any special advantage that could explain what was about to happen. Michael was a physical education teacher at a local school, passionate about sports, with the dream of one day competing in international triathlons. Everything changed on a cold November morning when a persistent pain in his right abdomen led him to seek medical attention. He thought it would be something simple, perhaps gallstones or inflammation. But after a series of tests, the doctor walked into the room with that serious look every patient dreads. "Michael, we found a tumor." The words seemed to echo in the air as if time had slowed down. The diagnosis, a rare liver cancer, already at an advanced stage. The doctor explained that the chances of a cure were minimal and that from that moment on, the focus should be on maintaining quality of life for the time he had left. Michael remembers leaving the doctor's office unable to process it all. He walked through the city streets with the cold wind cutting against his face, but his mind was far away. It was as if each step carried not only his body, but also the entire weight of the news. In the following days, he went through the whirlwind of emotions any human would face: fear, anger, deep sadness. His body began to weaken rapidly, and exhaustion took over his mornings. Frequent hospital visits became part of his routine, and life seemed to have lost its meaning. It was then, one sleepless night, that Michael opened his laptop and typed into Google, "Stories of people who beat cancer against all odds." Among the countless accounts, one headline caught his attention: "Healing begins in the mind." The article told the story of a woman who, using the law of attraction, daily visualizations, and affirmations, managed to reverse a terminal illness. Michael read every word with a mix of skepticism and hope. But one sentence stayed engraved in his mind: "You don't have to believe 100%, you just have to be willing to try." At that moment, he decided he had nothing to lose. If time was short, he would use every second to try something different. And so began a silent, almost invisible transformation, one that would change everything. The morning after that sleepless night, Michael woke up different. His body still hurt, the weakness remained, but there was something new: the decision not to give up. He had no idea how exactly the law of attraction worked, but he felt the need to dive into it. He spent hours watching videos, reading books, and studying testimonials. He discovered that the secret wasn't just thinking positive, but feeling as if healing had already happened. Visualizing not what he feared, but what he wanted to live. The first exercise he adopted came from an affirmation book. Every morning upon waking, he would sit in the armchair by the window and say out loud, "My body is strong, healthy, and full of energy. Every cell in my body works for my healing. I am grateful to be alive." At first, it felt like a lie. The frail body didn't match those words. But instead of feeling fake, he decided to do what the authors called training the mind like a muscle. If he repeated it enough, the mind would believe it. Michael also created a guided visualization ritual. Every day he closed his eyes and imagined himself on the podium of a triathlon competition with a medal around his neck, the crowd applauding, and his family crying with joy. He felt the breeze on his face, the warmth of the sun, the sweat running down. Every detail was real in his mind. At first, his family thought he was just holding on to an illusion, but Michael knew he needed to protect his energy. He began avoiding negative news, pessimistic conversations, and anything that reinforced the idea that he was doomed. And it was during this process that he discovered the power of intentional gratitude. Even on days when the pain left him hunched over, he found something to be thankful for. The hot coffee in the morning, a phone call from a friend, or simply the fact that he had woken up. He wrote in a notebook, "Gratitude doesn't ignore the pain, but reminds me there's still beauty in the midst of it." As the weeks went by, Michael noticed something curious. It wasn't just his body that seemed to respond, but also his emotional state. He smiled more, slept better, felt lighter. And little by little, he began noticing subtle signs of physical improvement that would even puzzle doctors. But before any test could confirm real change, Michael would face the first major test, a doctor's appointment that could either shatter all his hope or strengthen it forever. 6 weeks had passed since Michael began his new ritual. It was a rainy morning when he got into the car to go to the hospital. With every raindrop hitting the windshield, he mentally repeated the affirmations that had already become automatic. I am healthy. I am strong. My body is healing. But deep down, a silent voice still asked, what if nothing has changed? The hospital, with its characteristic smell of disinfectant and white hallways, felt even colder that day. Michael was called into the examination room, where he went through the whole process again: blood tests, ultrasound, and CT scan. Then came the hardest part: waiting. Sitting in the waiting room chair, he observed the people around him. Some stared blankly, others whispered quietly, some cried. He remembered how he had arrived there weeks before, broken inside, and realized that now something was different: hope. Finally, the door opened. Dr. Harris, a tall man with gray hair and a serious look, walked in with the results folder. Michael tried to read something in his expression, but it was impossible. "Michael, I don't know how to explain this," the doctor said, flipping through the papers. "The tests show an unexpected reduction in the size of the tumor. It's small, but statistically, it shouldn't have happened at this stage, especially without a change in treatment." Michael felt his heart race. It wasn't a complete cure, but it was a sign, a real sign. "What did you do differently?" the doctor asked, intrigued. Michael hesitated for a moment. Would the doctor believe him if he said he spent mornings giving thanks for health he didn't yet have? That he imagined himself competing in sporting events as if he were already healed? "I changed my mind, doctor," he replied with a slight smile. "I started seeing myself as a healthy person, feeling gratitude every day, and believing that my body knows how to heal." Dr. Harris said nothing for a few seconds. "Well, keep doing what you're doing. We'll repeat the tests in 2 months." As he left the hospital, Michael stopped in the parking lot and spent a few minutes looking at the sky. The rain had stopped, and a timid ray of sunshine broke through the clouds. He knew that this small improvement was just the beginning. And with this new dose of confidence, he decided to take his commitment to the law of attraction to the next level. If before he practiced by faith, now he would practice with absolute conviction. In the days that followed, Michael began an even more intense process, one that would not only transform his body, but also the way he saw life. 6 weeks had passed since Michael began his new ritual. It was a rainy morning when he got into the car to go to the hospital. With every raindrop hitting the windshield, he mentally repeated the affirmations that had already become automatic. I am healthy. I am strong. My body is healing. But deep down, a silent voice still asked, what if nothing has changed? The hospital, with its characteristic smell of disinfectant and white hallways, felt even colder that day. Michael was called into the examination room, where he went through the whole process again: blood tests, ultrasound, and CT scan. Then came the hardest part: waiting. Sitting in the waiting room chair, he observed the people around him. Some stared blankly, others whispered quietly, some cried. He remembered how he had arrived there weeks before, broken inside, and realized that now something was different: hope. Finally, the door opened. Dr. Harris, a tall man with gray hair and a serious look, walked in with the results folder. Michael tried to read something in his expression, but it was impossible. "Michael, I don't know how to explain this," the doctor said, flipping through the papers. "The tests show an unexpected reduction in the size of the tumor. It's small, but statistically, it shouldn't have happened at this stage, especially without a change in treatment." Michael felt his heart race. It wasn't a complete cure, but it was a sign, a real sign. "What did you do differently?" the doctor asked, intrigued. Michael hesitated for a moment. Would the doctor believe him if he said he spent mornings giving thanks for health he didn't yet have? That he imagined himself competing in sporting events as if he were already healed? "I changed my mind, doctor," he replied with a slight smile. "I started seeing myself as a healthy person, feeling gratitude every day, and believing that my body knows how to heal." Dr. Harris said nothing for a few seconds. After that appointment, Michael felt as if he had received new fuel for his soul. The news of the tumor's reduction had not only renewed his hope, but had also given him the certainty that what he was doing was working. He decided that from that moment on, practicing the law of attraction would not be just a daily exercise, but the center of his life. If before Michael said his positive phrases only upon waking up, now he repeated them whenever possible: in the car, in the shower, while cooking. He added new, even more specific statements. "My liver is regenerating rapidly. Every cell in my body vibrates with health and energy. I am ready to cross the finish line." He learned that the more detailed the affirmation, the easier it would be for the brain to believe it. Visualizations also increased in intensity. Now Michael didn't just imagine himself on the podium, he felt the weight of the medal, the noise of the crowd, the sweat running down his face, and even the heavy breathing after the race. He read in books that emotion is what gives power to thought, and so he lived his mental scenes as if they were high-definition movies. Michael realized he couldn't maintain that energy if he stayed surrounded by bad news and pessimistic comments. He stopped watching the news, unfollowed people on social media who constantly complained, and even began filtering his everyday conversations. "It's not that I don't want to hear problems," he told a close friend, "but now I need to protect my mind as if it were my home." Gratitude became even more powerful when he began giving thanks as if he were already healed. In the notebook where he wrote every day, sentences began to appear like, "I am grateful for my healthy body. I am grateful for crossing the finish line. I am grateful for moving my family with my victory." He no longer thanked for what he had, but for what he knew he would have. Curiously, as he dove deeper into this practice, Michael's body began to respond in subtle ways. He was able to walk longer distances without getting tired. The pain in his abdomen decreased. He regained his appetite and energy to prepare his own meals. These small victories, combined with his mental exercises, made him feel in control of his own destiny. But while his health was showing increasingly clear signs of improvement, a new challenge was about to arise. A challenge that wouldn't come from his body, but from the people around him. And that would put his entire faith in the process to the test. Michael was stronger, physically and emotionally. But, as he would soon discover, not everyone around him viewed this change with approval. It all began at a Sunday lunch at his parents' house. He was excited to share the good news, the tumor's reduction, his increased energy, and how much better he was feeling. But as soon as he mentioned affirmations and visualization, the mood shifted. "Michael, you know this isn't going to cure cancer, right?" his sister Emily said, trying to be gentle, but with a tone of disbelief. "You need to be realistic, brother. This isn't the time to play around with things that have no proof." Those words landed on the table like a weight. Michael took a deep breath, remembering one of the teachings he had read. Don't argue with those who aren't ready to believe. Just live the proof. He smiled slightly and replied, "I know it seems unlikely, Emily, but it's helping me, and for now, that's enough." Still, similar comments began to appear from other people: childhood friends, former classmates, even a former student who had heard about his illness and sent him a message saying, "Man, don't waste time with that stuff. Go live life while you can." At first, those words hurt. After all, who likes to be called naive? But Michael realized that this was exactly the test he needed to overcome: protecting his faith, even when no one else believed. He created a mantra for those moments: "My reality doesn't need to be understood by everyone. It only needs me to believe in it." To shield himself even further, he began sharing details of his practice only with people who showed genuine support. That's how he met Rachel Kim, a holistic therapist of Korean descent who worked with meditation and conscious breathing. They met in an online support group for patients with serious illnesses and soon began exchanging messages. Rachel not only believed in what Michael was doing, but also encouraged him to add new techniques to his routine, practices that, according to her, could accelerate the healing process even further. Intrigued and motivated, Michael decided to follow her guidance. What he didn't know was that these new techniques would trigger the fastest transformation he had ever experienced. Well, keep doing what you're doing. We'll repeat the tests in 2 months. As he left the hospital, Michael stopped in the parking lot and spent a few minutes looking at the sky. The rain had stopped, and a timid ray of sunshine broke through the clouds. He knew that this small improvement was just the beginning. And with this new dose of confidence, he decided to take his commitment to the law of attraction to the next level. If before he practiced by faith, now he would practice with absolute conviction. In the days that followed, Michael began an even more intense process, one that would not only transform his body, but also the way he saw life. The first in-person meeting between Michael and Rachel took place in a quiet cafe in downtown Portland. She arrived with a serene smile, wearing simple clothes but with a presence that seemed to fill the room. It was impossible not to feel the calm she radiated. "You're already doing a lot of things right," Rachel said after listening attentively to what Michael had been practicing. "But I can teach you something that will intensify this energy inside you." Curious, Michael leaned in to catch every word. Rachel explained that in addition to affirmations and visualizations, there were 3 practices that could create an ideal mental and physical state for healing. 1. Every morning, Michael should sit, close his eyes, and breathe deeply, counting 5 seconds to inhale and 5 to exhale. The goal was to synchronize heartbeats and breathing, inducing a state of deep calm. When the body is at peace, it channels energy into healing, not stress, she explained. 2. Rachel asked Michael to associate physical movement with his visualizations. For example, while imagining himself crossing the finish line, he should slowly walk across the room, feel the weight in his legs, and raise his arms as if he had just won. This would make the body register the sensation as real. 3. A powerful technique: looking at himself in the mirror and repeating affirmations while making eye contact with his own reflection. Michael tried it for the first time and was surprised. It was as if, for the first time since his diagnosis, he was speaking to the most intimate part of himself and believing what he said. In the first few weeks applying these techniques, Michael noticed changes not only in his body but also in his mind. The moments of anxiety dropped drastically. He felt a vibrant energy upon waking. His physical posture changed. He stood taller, more confident. Rachel also encouraged him to act as if you were already healthy. This meant walking a little more each day, wearing sports clothes, and even starting light training at the school gym where he had taught before. At first, his body protested. But instead of thinking, "I'm sick," Michael repeated, "My body is adapting to my new reality." And as if the universe were responding to this new vibration, an unexpected opportunity appeared, an invitation to take part in a local triathlon months ahead. It was only an amateur competition, but to Michael, it symbolized destiny, giving him a clear goal. Determined, he accepted, even though at that moment he was still far from ideal physical shape. From that day on, every visualization, every affirmation, and every mental training session had a specific target: crossing that finish line. The invitation to the local triathlon became Michael's new emotional anchor. Every morning he woke up before sunrise, drank a glass of warm water with lemon, a habit Rachel had recommended, and began his routine. Conscious breathing, affirmations in the mirror, and detailed visualizations of the race. But this time, there was something different. He didn't just see himself winning, he trained as if he were already a healthy athlete. In the beginning, his body still carried the signs of illness: quick fatigue, shortness of breath, and weakened muscles. But Michael applied the same mental philosophy to physical training. Every time fatigue appeared, he would close his eyes for a moment and say to himself, "I have infinite energy. My body responds with strength and endurance." 10-minute walks turned into 20, then 30. In just a few weeks, he could already run short stretches without stopping. Rachel also introduced a diet rich in natural, anti-inflammatory foods. Michael not only changed what he ate, but also began eating with intention, giving thanks before each meal and visualizing every nutrient strengthening his cells. 2 months before the race, he returned to the hospital for follow-up tests. Dr. Harris, the same doctor who had given the initial diagnosis, looked at the scans and furrowed his brow. "Michael, this is impressive." The tumor had shrunk even more, this time significantly. His liver function, once compromised, was now almost normal. "I can't say you're cured, but the numbers show your body is doing something extraordinary." Michael smiled, and this time he didn't hesitate to say, "I know exactly what's happening, doctor." With the race approaching, he increased the level of detail in his visualizations. Now, he imagined not only the podium, but also every stage of the race. The sound of water while swimming, the vibration of the bike on the asphalt, and the impact of his feet on the final stretch. He felt in his body the pride and gratitude in advance of crossing the finish line. The day of the competition was getting closer, and though there was anxiety, there was also a quiet confidence. Michael knew that, regardless of the result, he had already won something much greater. But what was about to happen on race day would surpass even his boldest visualizations. The sun had barely risen when Michael awoke, feeling his heart pounding, yet with a deep calm in his chest. He had dreamed all night about that moment, but he knew the real challenge wouldn't just be crossing the finish line. It would be keeping his mind steady and his body strong until the very last second. At breakfast, he went through his ritual: a glass of warm lemon water, followed by conscious breathing exercises and affirmations in the mirror. "I am strong. I am healthy. I am a winner." He put on his competition gear, feeling the fabric against his skin like the touch of an anticipated victory. At the race venue, the air was full of energy. Athletes warming up, families cheering, the organizers making final preparations. Michael felt a whirlwind of emotions, but chose to focus on what he had learned: breathing, visualization, and gratitude. The starting signal was given. With every stroke in the cold water, he felt his body respond. In the transition to the bike, his legs no longer trembled, and his heart beat strong but steady.
When he began the final run, sweat pouring, body tired, an inner voice guided him. "You are stronger than you think. Every step is a victory." As he neared the final stretch, the crowd applauded, and Michael saw his family in the stands, tears in their eyes. The podium was not just a symbol of the race, but of everything he had overcome: the diagnosis, the doubts, the fear, and the disbelief of others. When he crossed the finish line, the position didn't matter. To him, it was a gold medal against life's odds. With tears in his eyes, he silently gave thanks to that force he had discovered within himself, the force of the mind, of gratitude, and of faith. In the days following the race, Michael experienced something he had never imagined: a deep sense of fulfillment and peace. His family, once worried and even skeptical, could no longer hide their pride and admiration. Friends began to acknowledge that the transformation was real, and many asked how he had managed it. But for Michael, the true reward would come in the doctor's office, where the final tests would reveal the results of all his efforts. Dr. Harris, visibly moved, examined the new reports. "Michael, I have no clinical explanation for this, but your tumor has practically disappeared. Your liver is healthy, and your recovery is astonishing." Michael smiled and replied sincerely, "I used my mind, gratitude, and faith to transform my body. The law of attraction helped me see and create this reality." The doctor paused and said, "Whether this is the result of the law of attraction or not, what matters is that you are alive and healthy. Congratulations." This victory wasn't just over cancer, it was a complete transformation in Michael's life. He returned to work, resumed training, and became an inspiration to many facing similar challenges. Michael Turner's story doesn't end at the finish line, nor with the medical report confirming his recovery. It is an invitation for all of us to reflect on the power we have within ourselves. How many times do we let fear dominate, keeping us from trying something new? How often do we believe we are victims of circumstance, when in fact we are creators of our own reality? Michael chose not to be a number in a statistic. He chose to use his mind as an ally, gratitude as fuel, and faith as the path. And even in the face of the impossible, he transformed his life. His journey shows that the law of attraction is not magic, but a powerful tool that requires discipline, courage, and a deep connection to what we truly desire. If you are going through a difficult time, remember, change begins in the mind. Believe, visualize, and give thanks, even before you see the results. The universe responds to the energy you emit. And just like Michael, you can surprise not only yourself, but everyone around you. This is living proof that healing often begins within us.
Michael Turner's story does not end at the finish line, nor with the medical report that confirmed his recovery. It is an invitation for all of us to reflect on the power we hold within ourselves. How many times have we let fear take over, keeping us from trying something new? How often have we believed we were victims of circumstance, when in fact we are the creators of our own reality? Michael chose not to be just another number in the statistics. He chose to use his mind as an ally, gratitude as fuel, and faith as the path. And even in the face of the impossible, he transformed his life. His journey shows that the law of attraction is not magic, but a powerful tool that requires discipline, courage, and a deep connection to what we truly desire. If you are going through a difficult time, remember, change begins in the mind. Believe, visualize, and give thanks even before you see the results. The universe responds to the energy you emit. And just like Michael, you can surprise not only yourself, but everyone around you. Now I want to hear from you. Leave the word healing in the comments if you watched until the end and felt this transformative energy. Share what touched you the most in this story, or if you have experienced something similar. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell to receive all updates. And go ahead and click on the next video appearing on your screen to keep watching real and inspiring stories like this one. Your presence here makes all the difference. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey.